Hello, and welcome to Foot the Bill, where we audit your favorite media. My name is Trey, and Mr. Raglan, thank you so much for seeing me.
Come on, sit down. Sit.
I was hoping to speak to you about a property that's become associated with your name. Would you be willing to take a look at what we've dug up so far? We've been tracing the history of the property, ascertaining its value, how much it cost at inception. It seems like there's someone at the center of it, but we're just having trouble pinpointing him.
It's like you're not even trying here, yet you sit before me asking for help.
Well, there's no reason to be rude, Mr. Raglan. We're just looking for the owner of the property. We'd love to ask him some questions. We just can't seem to get in front of him.
That's such a shame.
I mean, it really is, because the person we're looking for is William Afton, restaurateur and child murderer. This evil Jim Henson turned Chuck E. Cheese into Chucky the series. But how? And more importantly, how much? I've spent months researching FNAF lore, watching the film at least a dozen times, phoning restaurant owners and roboticists and contractors to answer the question once and for all. How much does it cost to own and operate a Freddy Fazbear Pizza? How much does it cost to secure the building once closed? And just how much does it cost to own your own child-haunted animatronics? But first, the rules.
Don't forget the rules.
Prices will be estimated according to when the items depicted were first purchased. Much of this will be based around 1981 to 1982, when the restaurant was likely built and when most of my data comes from. Any newer purchases will be calculated according to when the movie takes place, approximately the year 2000. I recognize that there's some major differences between the film and the games regarding lore. For this video, we'll be focusing on the 2023 movie and what's explicitly depicted and discussed. And we'll let the greater lore of the games and books inform us on any gaps in the film. As we move forward, we'll break down the story of the film, highlighting appropriate expenses as they illuminate themselves, and towards the climax, break down the costs associated with running the restaurant itself. I'll timestamp all these topics below, but I encourage you to stick around for the whole video. And hey, if this does well, we'll consider breaking down the games as well. Your enthusiasm helps us know what you're interested in seeing. So, can William Afton afford to run a restaurant arcade pizzeria while juggling his favorite hobby of noping kids out of existence? Or are his ambitions too big for his animatronic-assisted britches? Let's find out. The movie opens with a panic attack. At least it's a paid panic attack. Look at that fresh uniform. Starchy. The guard's name is unknown, much like the fate of his body after that Freddy facial. We're gonna save calculating the security setup for the future new hire Mike, who is currently spending his lunch break hawking dream magic and ignoring Easter eggs.
We got this new flavor, Rainbow Explosion. I bet you'll go crazy for it. Mike?
Mike prefers tackling dads into fountains. Whatever floats your boat, or I guess in this case, father. Great way to end a career at the mall, Mike. Luckily, our new best friend Steve Raglan is here to help. Raglan sees something in Mike, despite his terrible employee track record, and offers him a Hail Mary job offer, which Mike promptly declines. Everyone says they want a job, but no one wants to work nights at the asbestos factory. Typical Gen X and their Nirvana attitudes. Also, nice participation award, Steve. Mike returns home unemployed, his living situation in a rough patch. Mike lives with his little sister Abby, but he's really not able to pull his weight on rent. Mike's personality consists of trying to dream hack his way into a movie with a different Freddy, but he keeps confusing boilers with forests. Inception is hard, yo, but you'll get there. By the way, I had one of these alarm clocks as a kid. It was a hand-me-down. I hated it, and I was so happy when I upgraded to my Nickelodeon one. Ugh. We meet back up with Mike at Abby's school, where Aunt Jane thinks artists are mentally ill.
Abby is not mentally ill. Oh, right. Perfectly normal to sit around drawing pictures all day.
By the way, does anyone else ever feel like this lawyer looks right now? He looks like he just got asked what he wants on his Quiznos sub. Quiznos. And Jane thinks Mike isn't a good roommate for Abby, and unless he can make good on rent, it's over for the two of them. Realizing he needs a job, Mike calls back Raglan. Damn, I love that look. Yellow and purple? Man knows a winning combo. Raglan gives us the rundown on the Rundown restaurant and its dated systems. Here we can start to calculate some specifics. That security system is a Pelco CM9760 KBD-X, hooked up to 6 8-inch monitors and one 20-inch Ikegami TM2017R monitor. Feeding those monitors are at least 12 security cameras across the building. Also present in the main office are a Magnavox TV and an RCA VJT255 top loader VCR. We've also got a wall clock, a microwave, and a walkie-talkie. Not bad for an office/break room/security center. Mike celebrates his first night on the job with some employee training.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun come to life.
Cool. Inside his locker is a goddamn balloon boy hungry for blood. Away, demon, away!
Get out of here! Oh, he's got the Get out of here,
His first night on the job is like any other. Quiet, creepy, full of asbestos, and foreshadowing. Mike gets down to business and falls asleep, getting a visit from the Dream Warriors. Mike chases after Goldilocks, but catches Goldie Rocks instead. Over at Sparky's, MatPat is being paid by the minute.
You know, it's just a theory.
Are you being paid by the word, or could we have a minute?
While Aunt Jane's goons aren't being paid at all. They're scheming up ways to get Mike fired so he can't make rent, but I'm starting to think Aunt Jane can't afford rent either.
You give us $2,000.
1,000.
Back home, Mike decides he hates Nebraska and then heads back to work. Looks like Foxy's on the run tonight. Mike, having patched things up with the state of Nebraska, is back in Dreamland, watching his brother calmly get kidnapped when the Fatal Five show back up. Their faces get all Silent Hill and then they start attacking. Mike wakes up to his security system getting hacked. He resets the breaker just in time to get busted by the police for sleeping on the job. The officer's name is Vanessa and points out that Mike is bleeding. Wait, does that mean if you die in the dream, you die for real? Oh, fuck! Vanessa and Mike talk about how sketchy Mike is for being the guy working nights at the abandoned kid casino murder factory.
Add to that the thing with those kids going missing.
What did you just say?
Vanessa flips the mood switch and powers up the animatronics to performance. But Mike would really rather talk about, I don't know, the missing children situation? Vanessa prefers encouraging cosplay and sticking around to do his job, I guess.
Just do your job and you'll be fine.
Sure, Jane's Goon Squad roll up immediately after the cop leaves and start trashing the joint. Curly gets spooked in the kitchen by Mr. Cupcake, which is only slightly less horrifying than being fed to Mr. Cupcake by a very pissed off Chica. Hank witnesses this robo-perversion of nature. Cupcakes should not eat people, thinks Hank as he screams. This is not my America. Hank's terror sends him to the janitorial closet, but safety is not behind that door. Only Bonnie, who immediately crushes him to death. Jeff watches with dread as Bonnie and Chica send Mr. Cupcake to Beyblade against the air duct grate. But these beasts are more intelligent than that. They like to play with their food. Max the babysitter enters at last, led deep into this cavernous pizza party hell. She's drawn to the workshop where Freddy waits, smiling. Max leans too close and gets chomped in half. Word of advice to would-be urban explorers: don't follow kids through abandoned places. It didn't go well in Candyman, it didn't go well here, it doesn't go well anywhere.
Follow me.
No, I will not. We head back to Mike's place where he tries to pay his half of the rent with a collectible from Freddy's.
I'm trying my best, Abby, okay?
Abby finds his lease agreement and is not happy about the terms. The two are interrupted by Vanessa, who informs Mike that somebody broke into Freddy's.
Somebody broke into Freddy's.
See? So she found Mike's sleeping pills, but somehow missed the 4 dead bodies in the building. Was she trained by the cops from the Saw universe? Vanessa judges Mike for needing sleeping pills and deems it okay for him to go back to Freddy's. Okay. Also, does Vanessa sleep? She was up all night with Mike, left, swung back over to Freddy's, then went to Mike's? Little Miss Ritalin judging Mike for sleeping? Ugh. Anyway, Vanessa tosses Mike's prescription in the bayou.
No more sleeping on the job.
And Mike can't get a hold of his babysitter, so he decides to take Abby to Freddy's for a campout.
It's like camping.
Oh cool, Balloon Boy licked the blood off the window. He missed a spot though. One cleaning montage later and Mike is right back to sleeping on the job. He's about to cut a deal with Golden Boy when he's woken up to Abby being tickled to death by Freddy and the gang.
They just want to play.
Abby soul bonds with the animatronics and the two head home. The next morning, Abby sums up the situation pretty well for anyone who's confused at this point.
Ghosts?
Yeah.
Of course. How else could they make the robot to move?
Those ghosts in those shells have given Abby the sight, and she's willing to be Mike's interpreter. Back at Freddy's, Vanessa's bwahing out about yellow rabbits. And again, the situation is laid out for anyone who's still confused.
Guess you figured it out.
Ghost children possessing giant robots?
A fort building montage occurs, after which Vanessa introduces Mike to spring locks. She explains that all the older models had them, and they're a tad unstable.
Ooh.
Like I said, unstable.
Neat! Abby gets electrocuted and is promptly sent home by Vanessa. I just can't get a read on this lady.
But if you ever bring Abby back here again, I will shoot you.
Mike realizes he can't make rent if he keeps taking Abby to work, so he calls Aunt Jane to babysit. He heads to the pharmacy where once again he's getting flack for picking up his own medicine.
You know what works for me? A warm glass of milk with chamomile and honey.
Dude, who asked? Oh, heart medicine? You know what helps me? Meditation and money. Have you tried meditation and money?
What an asshole.
Mike goes back to Freddy's to make a deal with the Ghost Child Mafia. In typical Ghost Child Mafia style, they try to whack Mike and steal his sister. Oh look, corpses! I think Vanessa might be a terrible cop. Back at the house, the Golden Crisp Bear is picking up Abby for another sleepover, while giving Aunt Jane a taste of Mike's sleeping medicine. Probably, hopefully. She's dead, isn't she? Yeah, she's dead. Mike's getting patched up by Vanessa when the two finally have it out. Vanessa puts all her cards on the table.
Possessed robots murdering innocent people?
They weren't innocent.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that first security guard not innocent? What the hell did he do, Vanessa? Where are all the bodies? Anyway, Vanessa admits that Freddy's gang wants to turn Abby into an immortal animatronic as well. She also admits to knowing where all those missing kids went.
It's not just their ghosts that are inside of those machines. It's their bodies.
The man behind all of this is William Afton, Vanessa's father. The same man who took Mike's brother and supposedly the man controlling the ghost corpse-infested machines. Mike races back to Freddy's, running into a cameo from one Charles Entertainment Cheese on the way inside. Mr. Cheese? Chica is leading Abby back to the workshop where her Springlock coffin awaits. Mike rushes in, saving her from certain doom, but they're pursued by Mr. Cupcake. Abby flees to hide, hunted by Foxy, but she pulls a predator and descends into the ball pit. Mike enters the room, but his search is interrupted by a very decrepit William Afton emerging from the darkness. Mike shoots his taser, but it has no effect. Afton tosses him like an arcade stuffy, while Vanessa saves Abby from Foxy. Like some sort of mechromancer, Afton revives the animatronics.
Wake up, children!
And pulls out a goddamn knife. Vanessa responds by pulling out a goddamn gun. And Afton pulls off his goddamn mask to reveal he's actually Steve Raglan. Now that we have a place, a face, and a name, let's break down the cost of Afton's weird daycare of death. There's a few key questions we need to answer in order to bill Afton. Number 1, how much does a Freddy Fazbear pizza cost? Number 2, how much do Fazbear animatronics cost? And number 3, can Afton afford to eat these costs? We know a few things about Afton based on clues dropped throughout the film. We know that he's a sentimental guy who kept the restaurant after it closed. he hasn't had it torn down, and that means he can choose when it gets torn down. This implies that he owns not only the building, but the land it sits on. Let's start there. The price of land, especially historically, is tricky to determine. I found some index estimates that suggest that the average price of commercial land doubled from 1981 to 2010 per square foot, but I wasn't satisfied with this metric. Instead, I found the location of a currently operating Chuck E. Cheese with a functioning animatronic band. The restaurant is in New Orleans, the same location as a lot of the external filming spots for Five Nights at Freddy's. I looked up tax and sales records for this piece of land that the restaurant sits on and discovered that in 1978, the property was sold for $502,872 and again sold in 1988 for $400,000. We'll use the 1978 number, but we don't need the entire lot of land, just a quarter, $125,718 or so. Pardon my dirty math. Owning the land doesn't build us a building though. Construction in the 1980s was kind of in a weird place. There was some serious tax issues going on in the middle of the decade, but if we assume that Afton had the building built in or around 1981, we can get an idea of how much it costs to construct. Engineering News Record has a national average index for building costs dating all the way back to 1915. The index listing for 1981 was 2097. Using that number and extrapolating it against the cost of a 10,000 square foot restaurant in 2019 nets us approximately $752,808.22. Now that we have the prices for land and construction of a building, we need to fill it with restaurant stuff. And here again, we get some great specifics. We can utilize a contemporary analog to a Freddy Fazbear's to estimate the costs of the restaurant. You see, Freddy's is inspired by a very real Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz Pizza restaurants. And thankfully, we have a lot of data available about Showbiz pizzas in the 1980s. According to this Showbiz franchise opportunity brochure from 1981-1982, opening and outfitting a franchise location comes with several associated costs. Assuming one has land and building acquired, there is first a $25,000 base franchise fee, followed by a $1,000 to $10,000 development contract fee to determine if your location is viable and if any extra work needs to be done in helping to develop it further. These fees are associated with Showbiz studying the area, determining foot traffic, and measuring viable metrics for franchise success. You can think of it like trying to get a Whole Foods in South Park. If your site is approved, Showbiz then charges you $610,000 to $730,000 in outfitting costs, based on the size of the restaurant. That's kitchen equipment, arcade machines, tables, kitchen ingredients, uniforms, training videos, decor, carpet, wallpaper, literally everything inside the restaurant you can think of, minus the animatronics. Showbiz animatronics provide a great starting point for this dialogue. This Fortune magazine from 1982 quotes $90,000 for an 8-member animatronic band. But these animatronics are vastly different from Freddy's. Showbiz and Chuck E. Cheese animatronics operated via air compression and pneumatic tubes, and were manually controlled by an off-screen engineer. These were also locked to the stage and could not wander around the restaurant. In the Fazbear world, their animatronics are lithium battery powered with an independent endoskeleton and suits with integrated mechanisms, expressive motors, and in some cases built with spring locks to accommodate a person to operate the animatronic from inside. Let's establish potential analogs, origins, and costs to work from. If one's first external impression of Freddy Fazbear comes from Showbiz and Chuck E. Cheese, then the first impression internally would definitely come from Short Circuit. Autonomous, battery-operated, expressive, Johnny Five is ubiquitous 80s robotics for kids. The hero prop in the film displayed a lot of the attributes we're looking for. Johnny Five was built to be lightweight, flexible, and very fixable. As such, motorized components were limited to shoulders, face, and tank treads. Over at Freddy's, we're looking at some serious motorized control and stability. I spoke to a few roboticists and engineers, and we reviewed the movie together. We determined that we're potentially looking at 9 servos per hand, 3 servos per eye, 6 joint motors from hip to ankle per leg, 7 joint motors from shoulder to wrist per arm, 4 abdominal, 4 groin pneumatic dampeners, all to secure stability, not to mention the internal mechanical operations within the suit, as well as any onboard systems to differentiate child from adult, birthday kid from attendee, and one day even being able to access a database of child predators. Neat! After listening to my team of engineers and roboticists debate at length, we came up with some numbers for you. The level of complexity necessary would result in an animatronic nearly triple that of a single showbiz machine. $45,000 per animatronic depicted in the film. The Springlock animatronics look to be the same endoskeleton with modifications. They've added Springlock ribs to hold back the complex animatronic machinery contained within the suit, like what we saw inside the Freddy head at the beginning of the film. We determined that these additional springs, motors, and a redistribution of working parts would increase the overall cost to $55,000 per Springlock suit. In the lore of the games and the film, the Springlock suits are older, fewer in number, and more technically complex. Within the robotics industry, it's not uncommon for older models to have extra components and higher costs compared to newer models using cheaper parts. Therefore, we feel confident in our numbers. And remember, these are 1981 numbers. A modern equivalent animatronic like we see in the film could run approximately $152,681.68 all the way up to $186,610.95. For comparison, consider Spot from Boston Dynamics. This fun little robo hellhound has been through a lot of iterations before finally launching as a commercial product for $74,500 plus software subscription fees. This version is smaller than older models, made with cheaper materials, and is around the size of a big dog. Another example worth looking at is the development cycle of Asimo. This cycle started around the same time that Freddy Fazbear's was operating in their universe, so it's not unreasonable to imagine the same sort of development cycle. Commercial prices for Asimo today are around $100,000 to rent, $2.5 million to own, but older, more limited models would have shifted this price all over the place. For the animatronics we see at Freddy's, with the date range for their construction, our price range is more than plausible. Throughout the film, we're given shots of the core 4 animatronics, Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica, as well as Mr. Cupcake. But we also get glimpses of other animatronics. We know that Afton is riding around in a Springlock suit, and the dolly animatronic for Abby was a Springlock. This scene also suggests that Purple Freddy and Sparky were Springlocks as well. Finally, we don't get a good look at Golden Freddy's insides, but we do know that he's real because he has weight when he sits in the cab. And the lore suggests to us that this is not a Springlock unit, so until we're told otherwise, we'll assume he's a normal animatronic. That means there's 9 animatronics total, 5 standard and 4 Springlock, for a total of $445,000 in animatronics. All right, Afton, now that you're alive and here with us, let's see. Oh my God, you stabbed your daughter. Damn, and you don't even look sad about it. What the hell? Now that's a twist. Oh, I think your ghost robot children may have decided to unionize. That's not gonna bode well for your expenses. You might need to decrease your overhead or you're gonna find yourself in a bit of a squeeze. Like that, but with money.
I always come back.
Well, you know, that's confident of you. We'll be here to collect. Actually, we're just gonna head out. Sometime later, Mike and Abby turn out to be doing very well after their personal robo-apocalypse. Gosh, I hope no massive national trauma disrupts Abby's adjustment to a happy, safe life. Vanessa, meanwhile, is unconscious. Who's sleeping on the job now, Vanessa? And with that last gurgling breath, Five Nights at Freddy's is done. So, can William Afton afford to be lord of the undead machine child army? Or is his wallet more burnt out than a children's pizza? Let's find out. In total, owning and operating a Freddy Fazbear Pizza costs approximately $1,963,481.22 to $2,092,481.22. What's funny is if you wanted to open a Chuck E. Cheese today, it would set you back around that much money. Of course, a Freddy Fazbear's would be so much cooler, right? Adjusting for inflation, this adds up to around $6,661,947.06 to $7,099,634.55. Guys, if we pool all of our savings together, we'd only need $7,099,634 to have our own Freddy Fazbear Pizza. We can do that, right? Well, anyway, speaking of, could Afton afford any of this? I've got data for you. I compiled data on the sales, cost of sales, expenses, fees, and profits of every Showbiz Pizza open in the United States between August 1st, 1981 to August 1st, 1982, averaged them all out and did the full math. In a given year, a Fazbear-like restaurant might make $509,557. That means that William Afton would only need to keep the one restaurant open for 4 years to break even, 5 years to turn a profit. We know that this location was closed down sometime in the 80s, but we don't get a specific date from the film, and we can't really get a good read on it based on set dressing, so this does put Afton in a tricky position. If the restaurant survived past 1985, he might just be able to pull it off with no debt. William Afton could plausibly foot the bill. Isn't that great, Will? All right. Yeah. Well, there you have it. Five Nights at Freddy's, done and done. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new here, maybe think about sticking around for more. For the rest of you, thank you for trying something new with me. Of course, we're going to finish Saw. Don't worry about that. Saw 6 is well underway as I speak to you now. Special shout out to all my engineers, roboticists, contractors, especially you, Josh, and all the other experts I call upon for their knowledge and patience. And super special thanks to all these people who decided to join Patreon and YouTube memberships. You make it so I don't have to worry about groceries once a month. That is an unbelievable relief that I can't completely describe. To everyone else, if you want to join, you're more than welcome. And if not, just being here is outstanding. Smack the like button, leave a comment about what I got wrong or what I got right. Know that I love you and I'm so happy you're stuck around. And as always, I'm here to make stuff if you're here to watch.